Welcome back, everyone, to Enough Already. I'm your host, Lauren Craddock, and today we are going to have an honest conversation about one of the top reasons why people say they can't minimize. And you probably have said it a time or two yourself, but people tell me often that they don't have time to minimize. My response is you don't have time to wait anymore. Today in this episode, I'm going to walk you through a 1-minute practice that I used that took me from a postpartum zombie to actually cleaning out my garage in 13 5-minute segments. So I'm going to walk you through that process today. But let's first jump into this reason that I hear from people all the time. So many people say, Lauren, my life is so full right now. I can relate to that. My life is very full. Lauren, I am going to wait until I have a free weekend where my kids are so little right now. I'm going to wait until they're older. Well, at that point, they're going to have practices and trips and need you as a chauffeur all around town. Or Lauren, I'm going to wait until I'm an empty nester. But guys, what I'm telling you is that there will always be something to fill that time. And what I want to share with you today is that you don't have time to wait anymore for two very important reasons. Reason number one is for you, and reason number two is for other people. So let's go to that first reason of you and why you don't have the time to wait anymore. When I tell you that I used to spend 1 to 2 hours every evening cleaning up, and that was just with one kid. This was prior to minimalism. And now with 3 kids, I spend 30 minutes or less in the evening. I've reset our spaces and we're ready to move on, ready for the next day. If you do the calculations there and say, okay, let's just say conservatively 30 minutes a night. I save 30 minutes a night, and you do the math across 7 days a week, across 52 weeks a year. Like, how much time is that? Y'all, that's almost 2 full waking weeks that I get back of my life, that I can live and do other things. 2 full waking weeks, I get back a year. And that's just from minimizing, and that's just from the time I spend in the evening. That's not even calculating how much time I used to spend shopping, returning Amazon orders, trying to find things somewhere in my house. So when I say that you don't have time to wait anymore, it's because you will get back so much time. That is one of the main benefits that my husband and I talk about often, is the amount of time that we got back from minimalism, which leads me into the second reason is other people. At this point in my life, I'm a part-time teacher, a mom of 3 boys, I'm a best-selling author, I'm a podcaster, I have a business in helping people minimize their spaces and really evaluate, like, what is it costing you? What's your story you're telling yourself? And I take every Saturday off. I don't check email. I don't check Instagram. I Sabbath on that day. I spend all the time outside with my boys and my husband. I'm involved in my community. I read every night before I go to bed. I have a consistent workout habit. I say all of this not to go, look at me, I'm so great, I'm so disciplined. No, it's because I literally have all that time back from minimalism. And because of that, I'm able to help so many more people now. I have the time and space to show up in ways that I didn't before. I was drowning in clutter before. I did not have the ability to reflect or even think beyond my own house sometimes. And so this brings me to that second reason is when you minimize, you are showing up for yourself, but you're creating space for you to show up in that best version of yourself, that next version of yourself, that's going to help all these people around you change their lives, which then creates this ripple effect. So when I say that you don't have time to wait anymore, there are people out there who are waiting for you to minimize, who need you to show up as the best version of yourself. And so today in this episode, I want to give you a very practical a very simple practice that you can do to start this journey of minimalism. But I wanted it to frame around these two important reasons revolving around time. Because when you put it in that way, and when you realize that it's about yourself and your capacity, as well as your impact on other people, it's really difficult to sit back and say, nah, I'm going to wait until a free weekend. So with these reasons in mind, let's jump into when I was postpartum with my third baby, and I felt like a zombie. If you're a mom, you've been postpartum, right? And so you understand how draining that can be just in general. But I remember being home that summer from school and with the 3 boys and feeling like I had 20 tabs open in my brain. I had started 20 different projects, from making my bed to starting the laundry, starting to empty the dishwasher. Now we have an explosion of toys over here, and the baby's pooped on the rug, and all of these things. And I remember by the end of the day, my emotions were shredded. My mental peace was not even there. Like I felt like I needed to close some tabs. I felt like a zombie. One, I was very exhausted, right, from not sleeping at night, but I wasn't seeing any momentum forward. And so from that aspect, it was very draining. So I decided to implement a practice of using a timer just in a different way than I'd ever done before. Previously, I had used the timer to determine how long tasks took me, or I would set a 20-minute timer and tackle spaces. But in this season of my life, trying to find 20 minutes to do anything was not even a possibility. But I said, okay, what is the smallest increment of time that I can use to help me maybe begin making some progress? So I set a 1-minute timer, and I did this throughout the day. And I was blown away by the results of it. In that 1 minute, I was able to make my bed. Check. Task completed. I was able to start emptying the dishwasher, and maybe 30 minutes later, take another minute and finish emptying the dishwasher. I was able to put away a few items of clothing. I was able to start clearing a space on the counter. I was beginning to see some progress and some momentum. And the great thing about it being 1 minute is I knew any of my kids could survive for 1 minute without me. They might be screaming or crying, but we would all survive the 1 minute. But what that 1 minute did for me is it provided a bar that was low enough for me not to make an excuse, but simply to show up and to execute something within that time frame. And occasionally, I was able to do a couple minutes back to back, but I stuck to that 1 minute timer just throughout the day, maybe even every hour. And I was beginning to see momentum happen, and that changed my mental state, that changed my emotional state, because I began to see myself as someone who's productive again. Because if you think back to the perspective pivot, what was it costing me? It was costing me that mental clarity. I was believing the story that I didn't have control over my time and my space. But now, by choosing differently, choosing to implement just a 1 minute practice to begin moving, closing some of those tasks and moving momentum forward and accomplishing things, I was able to see a shift in my identity and in my perspective. And then outside of those minutes, I felt more free to be able to fully spend that time with my boys, because I knew that there would be a time throughout the day that I would set aside a time and tackle a project. So I knew that any other minute of the day could be devoted to my boys. And that was very freeing as well. So this practice of using a timer in 1 minute increments to begin making progress in my house led me to develop the 5 and 5. So this is 5 simple steps in 5 minutes a day. This is a simplified minimalist system that you can use, that I use to create space for what matters most. So most recently, probably about 6 months ago, I was sick and tired of our garage. We have been through total home resets. That's just my lingo for going through the entire household and touching all of the items. And I had been through my garage in this particular home already. But I was finding that things were out of place. They were no longer returned to their homes. And this is primarily my husband's domain. But I remember every time driving into the garage and feeling like just angst and overwhelm at the clutter in the things that were left. It was almost like open taps for every item of like, well, that's not where it needs to be. So finally, after several months of driving in the garage and being frustrated, I went to my husband and I said, look, I know the garage is more of your domain and where you keep more of your stuff. And I'm not planning on going through tools, but would you be okay if I came alongside of you and helped put some of these items into rightful homes in the garage and just went through to see if there's anything that we no longer use? And he was like, yes, that would be great. And he even had a couple ideas like, hey, this is what I'm thinking of where this could go. And I was like, perfect. So then it was me looking for a time to do it. And I came up with excuse after excuse of I don't want to take 30 minutes or an hour and go through my garage. That's just not fun. I was able to stop making excuses for myself and time-wise when I brought down the bar of time so low that I couldn't make an excuse for it. And so birthed out of these 1-minute segments, postpartum with my third baby, was the 5 and 5 guide. This minimalist system that simplified 5 simple steps in 5 minutes a day. And so I approached my garage in the same way. I said, okay, I'm going to take 5 minutes today and go through these 5 steps. And lo and behold, it took me 13 sessions, so just over an hour of time to finish going through my garage. I did these 13 sessions of 5 minutes each in about a 3-week time period. And it was awesome because I felt such relief driving into the garage every day, seeing a part that I had protected. And I had explained to my husband, like, hey, this is where I put these items. What are your thoughts? And so it wasn't just me going in and obliterating the garage because, again, it wasn't my space to completely do that. But it was a shared space and I had a vision for it. And he had some ideas and we came alongside of it. And in those 5 minutes, I was able to make momentous progress and finish and be done with it a few weeks later. Since developing the 5 and 5, I have used it so many different times in my house for myself as well, because it's broken down that time barrier where I'm like, oh, I don't have time to do it. Yes, I do. I don't have time to wait anymore. But I can take 5 minutes of my time. I can take away 5 minutes of my TV watching time. I can take away 5 minutes of my sleep or 5 minutes of my book reading or whatever it might be and address a specific space because I know that those dividends of time for myself and other people on the other end are so very important and are worth the effort today. So my challenge to you today is to find a space that's not super emotionally charged. So find a drop zone, a meal zone, the laundry room, a kitchen counter, a decently small enough space, but you don't have to go through the entire space in 5 minutes. And when you get my guide at ownwithintention.com, in this free guide, it will walk you through, okay, how do you stop after 5 minutes? Because you're not going to empty the entire space. It will give you steps and tips about how do you end in 5 minutes without disaster all over your floor and have to live with that until you're done with it. But how do you end with it so it's contained back in that space and be able to make progress on that day in and day out, 5 minutes at a time? Those 5 steps are perspective, purpose, prompt, place, and protect. And again, in that guide at ownwithintention.com, you will have an explanation for all of those, as well as the tips to help you be successful. So my mini moves for you today are to find a space and try out the 5 and 5 today, and to also share this with someone who could really benefit from taking 5 minutes a day to minimize a space. And just a reminder, waiting for time is costing you. So take time today 5 minutes. That's it. Take time today to really, truly begin to change your life in this minimalist journey. Thank you so much for joining me today.